All right, tell me your name.
Jerry Chavers.
And Jerry, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Milton, Florida.
But you live now in California, in Simi
Now I
Valley?
live in California.
And back during the Vietnam War, you were
I
involved.
was on my way. I went into service from here, went through boot camp in Providence, Rhode Island. And when I graduated out of boot camp, I went to California, to Port Hueneme, California, and from there deployed to Vietnam.
And they turned you into a CB.
I was in CB. I went in as on what they call the Instant Petty Officer Program.
Huh.
If you had training in the trades, then they give you rank. And so I went in as an E5 because I was a telephone man.
Oh, we don't. So you were already how old at that point?
I was 30 years old.
You were 30 years old, and you joined up.
I joined
You
up.
volunteered
Yeah,
to go
Yeah.
with the CBs and get shot at.
yeah. And we went, the CBs go through a Marine boot camp,
They do.
taught by Marine sergeants.
Uh-huh.
And when you're going through training, that E5 don't mean nothing. You're just the lowest peon they got. And they didn't like us because the sergeants didn't like us because we were coming in at rank that they took 6 and 8 years to get. And they were pretty rough on us.
Well, so you wound up over in Vietnam. You were telling me you wound up at Khe Sanh.
Part of the time, yeah.
So you were in 1967, 68.
You know, I got there Christmas Eve, 1967.
All right, so you were ready for the Tet of 68.
Yes.
Wasn't that prime? That was really poor planning on your part.
Yeah, very poor planning. The military didn't ask me. And so I went and...
Tet was like the end of February or what?
yeah, somewhere around there. And I got... I was a heavy equipment operator as part of the time. I did everything they wanted to do. I did everything. And I was driving an 18,000-pound forklift operator. And I was the only one that operated that piece of equipment. And they wanted us to move some heavy bunkers around the buildings that had been blown, and they wanted to move them around so that they couldn't move in on them and use them. So they took the old giant grasshopper, is what we called it, the helicopter. They picked it up and took it out. We had 2 of those forklifts, and I was supposed to be in the hop chopper, and I was also the captain of our battalion, his jeep driver. And he had to go somewhere, so I had to get off the helicopter, get in the jeep, take him, and they took it on out there, and on the way out there they got shot down.
Helicopter got shot.
Helicopter got shot down.
Killed everybody?
Yeah, killed everybody, lost that forklift. So they brought another one in, picked up the helicopter and me this time, and we went out there and finished the job. And while I was there, they decided we would extend some of the underground bunkers. So we're under the ground, digging and moving. And you couldn't get any equipment down there other than old manpower equipment. And so we dug bunkers and things underneath the fields out there while they were shelling us.
And you were about a couple of miles away from the hill of Khe Sanh, weren't you?
Khe Sanh actually wasn't on a hill.
Wasn't?
Khe Sanh was in a valley, and the hills were all the way around it.
Were you on a hill?
No, we were in the valley, and they were shelling.
That don't sound real smart. I thought that most times when they put up
Well, see, we
fort, they like to go
didn't
on
put
a
it
hill.
up. Khe Sanh was an old French fort.
Well, they weren't very smart.
They weren't very smart. They got kicked, but we built that, and it was built right across the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they wanted to hold it, and they wanted us out of the way. And I was there about 10 days.
And you said that your outpost, which you were were you about 3 miles from Quezon? You were supposed to support Quezon, as I
when
brought up.
yeah, and when it came up, we were supposed to move in and support it.
But you came under fire too.
We came under fire, and then during the Tet, the heavy Tet offensive, when they took Way, all of our supplies were on the CB supplies were on the sand ray. They call them the sand docks. They just pulled the LSTs up on the sand and unload. Well, that was the only thing that was still in Way that belonged to us. And that's where all our supplies were, because the LSTs had heavy guns on them, and they couldn't take those. And so
they got your supplies.
they didn't get in and get the supplies because the LSTs were keeping them beat back. So we armored up things and went in through Way with them. They owned it, and we went through it, loaded up our supplies, and went back through them, and went back out and finished our jobs. And
you had to go back out to near Quezon.
Yeah.
What was the name of your fire base? It was a fire
Jolly.
base? Fire base or
They
what?
called it Jolly Combat Base.
Combat base.
Yeah.
Not a fire base. It
Not
didn't
a
have
fire base.
artillery.
No.
It was just a combat base.
Just
You were
combat.
kind of like a lot of people there ready to move if
Well,
Quezon needed.
we had it a regular compound there, completely surrounded by concertina wire and three different sections, concertina wire and tripwire. And I was the ComShaw artist. Every battalion's got one. And what you do is you trade. If you need something, you take something you got a lot of and trade it to another outfit that's got what you want.
Exactly.
So I had gone out and got extra 50 caliber machine guns.
Good thing,
Yes.
as it turned out.
And normally you have 4 50s, and that's one on each corner of the perimeter. Well, we had 8. So we had 4 extra 50s.
Where were those guys that gave up their machine guns? What happened to them?
I don't know.
Maybe they messed up by letting you have
They
their
might
machine
have,
guns.
but,
What'd you give them? Pineapple or something? Cans of pineapple? Or?
I traded them 3/4 inch plywood.
I don't think plywood was going to stop a lot. They probably got messed
but they
up.
keep you off the mud.
Well, long enough to get killed. You're the one that had the machine gun. They gave up their machine gun.
Well, what happened was that they slipped into the base through the wire, and they could do that. They could slip right through that concertina wire. Slipped into the base and satcheled the 4 corner bunkers. And they didn't know we had 4 more. And they picked one of the other bunkers. In front of it, they slipped what they call bungalow torpedoes, which is just a bamboo with the centerpieces knocked out and filled up with explosives. They slide it under the wire, set it off, and it just blows the wire out of the way. Well, they blew the wire, and they started through it, and they were coming 4 or 5 abreast coming, and it just like a wave. And I got to that bunker. I wasn't my assigned position, but they'd already overrun the position I was supposed to be in. I got in the bunker, and the gunner was dead. He'd been shot right between the eyes. And I threw him out of the way and grabbed the loader, slapped him. He was a young kid, 18 years old, scared to death, which all of us were. And I took the 50 and started shooting into him. And I don't know if you know how big a 50 is.
It'd blow people up.
And I would blow them out of the way, and they just come back in like water. And I shot all night, melted the barrel on the 50, and the kid was so scared by then, he didn't grab the gloves. He grabbed the barrel.
I'm telling you our family secrets.
Okay, I won't. And he grabbed the barrel with his bare hands, twisted it off. He lost one whole hand and that much of the other one. Got the new barrel on, and he passed out. Well, I refed the ammunition into it, and I kept firing, and they weren't stopping. They just weren't. And way off in the distance. I don't know if you've ever been in a heavy battle like that, but some reason everything stops periodically. It just stops. It's silence. No shooting, Nobody screaming, nobody running. It just, everything just freezes. And I heard this sound coming in on the wind, just floating in. And it sounded like bugles and all that. And I don't know if you remember the Korean War.
I've seen the movies.
Yeah.
I know the bugles
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, all the bugles and all, and that popped into my head. I said, my God, the Chinese are coming. They don't need any help. You know, they're about to overrun us anyway. And what it was the Australians.
I'll be darned.
They came up, 800 of them, marching up the road. One of them had a baton, and the other one had a bagpipes. And they come right up, marched on the outside of our wire, fixed bayonets and charged, and it broke them up.
I'll be darned.
They broke and run.
Thank goodness for the Aussies.
Yes,
I like those guys.
yes, we did too. And we got them as drunk as we could possibly get them when they come back to camp that night.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, that fellow that lost his arms changing your gun barrel.
Yeah.
I mean, what is he? Have you stayed in
I
touch with
haven't
him?
seen
You know
him
whatever
or from
happened?
him since. I don't know what happened to him.
He must have gone been medevaced out.
Yeah, he was medevaced out, that's for sure. But we were,
So it burned his hands off.
yeah, it was just that hot. But he was so scared that he,
Didn't have any gloves and
no, he just the gloves were there. He just didn't
think to use them.
think to use them,
But if you hadn't been firing that machine gun, they definitely would have overrun the whole thing.
oh yeah, that machine.
So how
gun.
many people did you have in that combat base?
There was 825 regulars, people, and then officers. It probably had a couple hundred officers.
So how bad were the casualties from that whole episode, do you think?
I think we lost 25 men.
Really?
That's all.
It could have been a lot worse.
Could have been a lot worse if they'd have got into the camp. It would have been a lot worse, but they didn't. That kept them out.
I've read a lot about that Quezon defense and didn't think about the combat bases that would be surrounding it. But I remember the artillery lessons that they used on that, where they square off a square and then they just clean out inside that square, and then they'd pick the next square and they'd fire around it and then clean out inside that square, all the way around Quezon till they cleaned up all the combatants that were coming at them.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable how many people there were. What was really spooky, I have no idea how many people I killed that night. It had to be in the hundreds. There was not a body out there the next day.
I'll be darned.
Not one body. They hauled them all off. And I talked to Kit Carson, one of that came over to us from them, about that. And he said, what they do is, the first wave that comes at you ain't got no weapons.
That's just to see where your weapons are.
And to use up your ammunition. The second wave's got guns. The third wave ain't got no guns, but he picks up weapons from the second wave. And the fourth wave has got 2 meat hooks.
And they drag them off.
And anybody that's laying on the ground, they slack it and drag them off. Well, if they're on the ground, they don't care if they're alive or dead, they drag them off.
Whoa.
And they bury them in the tunnels they've dug,
Whoa.
in the walls of the tunnels.
Well, they were rugged people.
They were rugged people.
You're lucky to come out of that alive.
Yep, I am. I am very lucky.
So you're one more sailor that's been stuck where you shouldn't have been.
Well,
We need to talk to him about that.
yeah, that would have been different, but they, I got so many times that I should have been dead, besides that one. I come around the corner of a bunker one night, and there was a guy lifting the lid on one of our bunkers, fixing to throw a satchel in. I just flipped up my M16 and flipped it off and pulled the trigger. And I flipped it all the way to fully automatic, and he was, I don't know, 20 feet from me.
Yeah.
And I put 30 rounds into it, just rap. And next thing I did, I woke up 4 days later on a hospital ship.
Oh, really?
And when I woke up, as far as I was concerned, I was right back where I had been, and I jumped up. Well, I didn't have a scratch on me, but I was completely covered with him.
Oh, really?
All over me. And they thought I was, and piece of shrapnel hit the barrel of that M16 and rolled it up, slammed the whole thing back into my chest. I had a flak jacket on, but it hit me so hard that the only way they talked about, they said it paralyzed my heart. And they thought I was dead. They checked me and threw me over in the corner where they did that triage thing where if you were too badly wounded.
Yeah.
I was completely covered with blood and parts of him all over me. And they did a check on me and they thought I was dead, so they stuck me over there. Well, when I come to, I was right back where I had been as far as I was concerned, and I jumped up. One of the nurses was right there and she just keeled over.
Oh, 'cause you're dead.
Yeah, I'm dead. And I got up, scared her. And they cleaned me all up and I didn't have a scratch on me, but I was black and blue from here to here. Completely black and blue where that thing hit me so hard. And to this day, I don't have any idea. That barrel's what, that big. For it to hit that, it split it that far.
Hit it just right.
Rolled it up and slammed the whole thing back in my. If it had been an inch either way, it would have just that flak jacket wouldn't have stopped it.
Quarter of an inch either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would have just cut me in half, but it didn't.
Whoa.
And I don't know why.
Well, here you are.
I'm here.
You're like a ghost.
Yeah, it wasn't anything that I did that saved me. And
well, you're part Indian, right?
yep.
You Chavers are so full of Indian. I'm surprised you didn't scalp that guy.
If I'd have thought of it, I probably would have. But
Yeah, y'all have a heritage of being a pretty mean bunch of Indians.
yeah, the Seminoles are a bunch of mean Indians, but they never signed a peace treaty until here just a few years ago.
Yep.
It's really funny. I used to know a few words of Seminole. I forgot them now, but I used to know a few words. Basically, a bright and beautiful day was what it was. And we were down in South Florida, and there was a little. It was almost like a little country store.
Look at you. We're not telling any lies. We're not telling any lies.
I don't know. You're not telling anything for broadcasting.
Yeah, we likely will tell them about the Chavers, about how these Indians got pretty rough.
Have to watch that guy.
Well, that was a good story. I'm going to stop it right there for now. We're going to start up another